Former FIA President Max Mosley has died, while Hamilton looks to Mercedes to reduce mistakes. You can now watch full 24-minute episodes of The Inside Line at our new home on unbeaten.com. The world of motorsport is in mourning this week, following the passing of former FIA President Max Mosley, who has died aged 81, following a long and brave battle with cancer. Mosley was hugely influential in the sport and was a central figure in improving safety, not just in F1, but in road cars as well. Mosley first experienced racing in the 1960s as a driver, and then co-founded defunct car constructor March before his ascent to power with close ally Bernie Ecclestone as commercial rights holder.
In the old days, I always used to say to Bernie, it's too expensive, we've got to do something to get the cost down. Bernie would feel there's always another billionaire will come along and pay for one of the teams.
In his later years, Mosley was focused on privacy rights after he successfully sued the News of the World over a front-page story about his sex life in 2008. Seven-time F1 world champion Sir Lewis Hamilton says that Mercedes cannot afford another disastrous race like Monaco. Hamilton started 6th but finished in 7th after an early pit stop cost him 3 places, while teammate Valtteri Bottas retired in the pits on lap 29 with a machined wheel nut. The debacle means rival Red Bull Racing leads both standings, with the Silver Arrows banking just 7 points in Monte Carlo. It's going to be tough, Hamilton said. I told you at the beginning, they've got a championship-winning car, and they're going to be very hard to beat. Monaco was a tough race for Mick Schumacher, with the Haas driver not just finishing last after a fuel pressure pickup issue forced the 22-year-old to let teammate Nikita Mazepin past. But he also caused up to $500,000 in damage after a crash at Casino Square in Saturday's final practice. "This is what these cars cost, you know," said team boss Gunther Steiner. "I always said the front wing alone is $150,000. Lando Norris says his new contract extension with McLaren came on the back of the team telling him things he wanted to hear with regards to his place at Woking and its future plans. Norris, who scored his 3rd career podium in Monaco, signed a new multi-season deal with the British squad last week, said to be worth around $8.5 million a year, up from $5.5 million. The freshly inked deal reflects the Brits' standing in the team, though it is short of the reported $12 million paid to teammate Ricciardo, who he lapped around the streets of Monte Carlo. Norris's confidence was also boosted by McLaren's bright future, which includes important infrastructure projects like a new on-site wind tunnel for rapid aero development. "I am happy with where I am, and I didn't need to think of too many other things in order to sign my new contract," Norris said. French racer Esteban Ocon is expected to stay with Alpine beyond 2021, with his management team already in talks with the Enstone squad for a contract extension into the sport's new era. Ocon, 24, joined the outfit last season after a year on the sidelines spent as Mercedes reserve and scored his maiden podium in Bahrain at the Sakhir Grand Prix, where he was 2nd. And Alpine are happy with Ocon's progress this season against 2-time F1 world champion teammate Fernando Alonso. "Esteban is doing everything to make me consider keeping him in the team. I would be remiss if I didn't think about it," said Alpine CEO Laurent Rossi. Across the first 5 rounds, Ocon has outqualified Alonso 4-1 and gone 4-0 in races when they could be compared. He also has 12 points to the Spaniard's 5, doubling his haul. F1's power brokers are up in arms that the sport's governing body, the FIA, is waiting until next month's French Grand Prix to introduce a new test for catching out flexible rear wings. The issue surfaced in Spain, where seven-time F1 world champion Sir Lewis Hamilton described Red Bull rival Max Verstappen's rear wing as bendy, suggesting it was illegally flexing at speed. And while the FIA is set to introduce new load tests and visual checks in France, the delay means the next race in Azerbaijan is effectively a joker, baking in an advantage at a flat-out Baku. One that Mercedes boss Toto Wolff says could open rival teams up to a hearing at the FIA's International Court of Appeal, or ICA. The movement of the rear wings has been judged as excessive, so teams who would run this kind of thing are prone to be protested. And probably this is going to go to the ICA, he said. Nobody needs this messy situation. All 20 cars have passed the FIA's scrutineering process to date, meaning they are considered legal, forcing new avenues of evaluation. A new test is allowed under Article 3.9.9 of the regulations, which states, the FIA reserves the right to introduce further load and/or deflection tests on any part of the bodywork which appears to be, or is suspected of, moving whilst the car is in motion. France's Paul Ricard circuit will be the focus this week, with the high-tech test track hosting another Pirelli test for the brand's 18-inch tires that will carry F1's new era cars next year. But it will be Ferrari, not Mercedes, doing the running at the two-day wet weather test, with the Silver Arrows believing its involvement would put it over the $145 million budget cap. Teams can do 5,000 kilometers of testing using their power unit before the costs are counted towards the budget cap. But while Mercedes says that the test would have exceeded that, its budget cap concerns also extended to the expense of sending mechanics to Paul Ricard. A once unthinkable scenario that led to Ferrari stepping up, with Scuderia team boss Mattia Binotto stating its focus is on 2022. Luckily enough, we didn't have a crash in Imola, so eventually we have some more contingency to Mercedes today. And so we are happy to accept and support, he said. Daniel Ricciardo has opened up on his 2016 Monaco Grand Prix, stating he felt pretty filthy after a botched pit stop from his then squad Red Bull that cost him his maiden win in the Principality. Monaco was the second straight victory to fall through Ricciardo's fingers that year, with Red Bull's strategy at the previous race in Spain favoring then-teammate Max Verstappen, said Ricciardo to Australian Grand Prix podcast In the Fast Lane.
I felt like, again, I'd done everything I can, even like the weather kind of threw a few curveballs at me and I kind of survived it. And I was pretty filthy because it was like 2 weeks in a row. And obviously then for that to be Monaco.
Ricciardo's redemption, however, came 2 years later, though he had to nurse his car home with an MGU-K failure with 50 laps to go.
To fight it off and then win, I was just like, it was relief, yeah, more than anything. I was just glad to have ticked that box.
Ricciardo finished a disappointing 12th in Monaco this year, where his McLaren MCL 35M featured a striking one-off Gulf livery. 1996 Monaco Grand Prix winner Olivier Panis said that France's ban on tobacco and alcohol sponsorship is largely to blame for the lack of young French drivers coming up the ranks. France's ban, known as Loi Event, was tightened in 2007 and forbids the advertising of such products, which makes sponsorship impossible, said Panis to F1's official podcast Beyond the Grid.
When we have this law, cut everything. In France, it was a disaster, and it takes a long time to recover and to find a solution to help the young French driver to come back to Formula One.
F1 now has two French drivers on the grid with Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly, who won in Imola for AlphaTauri last year, for France's first Grand Prix victory since Panis's win in the Principality 25 years ago, in which the then Ligier racer had to manage fuel in the closing stages, with the team not believing he had enough to finish.
You don't believe how much I don't pass the sixth gear anymore. Even during the tunnel, I left off the throttle very, very soon everywhere. And I know David closed the gap to me, and I push one lap to show him, no man, you don't pass me anyway.
Thanks for watching. To stay up to speed on all things Formula One, make sure you hit the subscribe button.